that's not even relevant, because by the time Cleopatra comes into power, um, she, for the most part, went ahead and didn't do anything for the Kemetic people anyway. So why do we even care? That's Boo Fam. Peace and blessings. This is Derric Rau Khu, and I'm not sure if you've all been following this whole wokeness thing. If you have, or if you haven't, you would notice that on the right hand side, you have individuals who are basically, they are promoting inclusiveness based upon the color of an individual's skin, based upon individuals' religious preference, based upon their sexual preference, based upon their gender and sexuality. On the left hand side, you have individuals who see wokeness as anything that is against, for the most part, I would say, the established status quo. In other words, anything that is against anything that Western males or white American males have established, they consider, if it's against that, they consider it to be wokeness. All right. When I'm looking at it from both sides, and I'm looking at, I'm kind of evaluating, kind of analyzing how this goes. The first time when I went ahead and I saw this, I wasn't going to really say anything about this until I went ahead and I started seeing something. Something was being revealed to me. First of all, the whole idea of wokeness is basically a concept, a term and a concept that, again, was hijacked from Black people in America. All right? We already know this. It's a term that was hijacked, and it has nothing to do with anything that we're basically referring to. Now, I'm going to show you kind of how devious this is and why we have to go ahead and kind of not so much pay attention to it, but again, get back on our agenda. Now, like I said, when you look at it from the right and the left hand side, you see both of these, there seems to be ideologies. But as I was saying, this is a term that we created. And actually, it's a, what do you call it? It's kind of like not even the original term. The original term was consciousness. And again, this is a term and a concept that we created, and it was basically hijacked. And as a result of it being hijacked, it was basically used and misused and all this other kind of stuff into what we see today. It kind of reminded me of the word mojo. Now, everybody who basically knows about African American culture, you know about African American spirituality, you know about blues music, you know about jazz music, you know that a mojo is basically a charm. It is well, for the most part, we're going to go with that. It's a charm. It is a charm for good luck. It's a charm for a whole lot of other things that basically the blues singers are the ones who popularized. But it's been around for a while. But lo and behold, there was the first person I remember that said something about this was Jim Morrison of The Doors. He sung about mojo rising, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, the term mojo is related to sex. Now, directly, it has nothing to do with sexuality. It has nothing to do with genitalia or anything. But here it is. Mainstream media has basically hijacked a word and hijacked a concept and a term from us inappropriately. All right, and as a result, they took it, ran with it, and now we have a completely different idea of what this is. Okay? So it's the same thing with this whole wokeness. I can't remember who went ahead and talked about wokeness, who was the first person that used wokeness. There is a video that has been circulating saying that Erykah Badu was she popularized it, but she wasn't the one who came up with this. All right, she wasn't the one that came up with the idea or the concept of being woke. This is something that we've been talking about before. Now, the reason why, again, I wasn't going to say anything about this until I started thinking about this, started really thinking about this whole wokeness thing. And the reason why I was thinking about it was because I like to watch a lot of movies, especially movies that were made in the 80s, the 90s, and the early 2000s. And as I was saying, I agree, or I see things on both sides. I look at it from both sides of the perspective. So I see the left hand's perspective. I also understand, I don't want to say left hand, but the left perspective, I also see the right's perspective of what they're actually talking about. But as I'm sitting up here and I'm watching this, I remember not too long ago, they came out with the Cleopatra movie, or the Cleopatra documentary or whatever. And there was all these people who was basically, in uproar about the fact that Cleopatra is portrayed as being black. Now, my argument about this, first of all, historically, Cleopatra was not quote unquote black. Was she a person of color? Yes, most likely she was. But an actual black person, not really. And when I say black person, I'm saying someone, like a darker brown, brown complexion who, jet black complexion or so. Most likely not. But that's not even relevant, because by the time Cleopatra comes into power, she, for the most part, went ahead and didn't do anything for the Kemetic people anyway. So why do we even care about this? Why do we even care about if Cleopatra was black or if she wasn't, considering the fact that she didn't contribute to the people? She didn't contribute to the people's cause. She didn't contribute to anything in regards to that nation. All right. I mean, like I said, by the time she comes into power, she's already had aligned herself with the Europeans or with the Westerners. So who cares? And then, as I'm sitting up here thinking about that, I'm reminded. Remember a few years ago when we had, all these black actors and actresses that were actually going to boycott the Oscars. Now, if you're like me, you don't give a rat's about the Oscars. You never did. You didn't care. Okay? We stopped caring about the Oscars. I stopped caring about the Oscars when Denzel didn't win an Oscar for Malcolm X, for portraying Malcolm X. That's when I stopped caring. And they know that a lot of us stopped caring about the Oscars. But while all of a sudden that they go ahead and they, have this campaign to, we want to go ahead and the Oscars is not being inclusive. You're not being diverse. And remember, who was the individuals who basically led this? It was Jada Pinkett, an individual who has not made anything of relevance or importance besides playing in the Matrix, okay? And let's see, what else? And Spike Lee, another individual who, for the most part, since Malcolm X, maybe there's a couple of other movies after that, but since then has not made any important movies or any movies that of importance or relevance as well. Okay, but here we have these individuals going here, and they were the ones who were boycotting. They were the ones who were promoting this boycott against the Oscars. Now, the reason why they're doing this is because this is how they were bringing us into the fold to all of a sudden start caring about this whole identity politics that we are in today. And that's why I'm sitting up here and I'm thinking about this and I'm looking at this and seeing this was a whole grand scheme. This was a grand scheme from the beginning. Okay? And I would like to suggest that we don't care about wokeness. We need to go back and embrace the term consciousness and promote consciousness. All right? Because consciousness has nothing to do with the color of an individual's skin. It doesn't have anything to do with color of an individual's skin or what their preference and all that kind. We didn't care about that. That's not what consciousness deals with. I mean, let's think about it. Let's look at it. What was the first conscious movie or the last conscious movie you remember seeing in 1999? Anybody remember? It was The Matrix. How many people of color, okay, if you want to go there, or any of the other things, how many of those individuals could you count in that? Did we care that Keanu Reeves was a white guy? No, we didn't. Yes, we were able to go ahead and identify and see, okay, we see Morpheus and we see him playing second hand and all this other kind of stuff, but it was a conscious movie. And the reason why we didn't really care about any of those things is because, remember, from a conscious perspective, we understood this is their reality, not our reality, okay? In their reality, they're going to be the quote-unquote main hero and all that kind of stuff. It has nothing to do with our reality, because in our reality, we go ahead and recreate our own selves in our own image, and we are the heroes. So if you think back about these movies, like I said, think back to movies in the 1990s and the 1980s and so forth. You know, another conscious movie, a real conscious movie that had no black people in it, okay? Had no black people, had no Asian, it wasn't inclusive or anything, but I think one of the best movies that was made in regards to the whole concept. It's the Frank Herbert's Dune, okay? Now I know a lot of people, they go ahead and they talk about it because they try to compare it now to the new version or the new movie that has come out. But the old version was still a real good movie. I consider it to be a classic. And in that movie, I identify with, that's Paul Atreides. I understand who the hero is, or who the hero or Heru is. It was that simple. I didn't care if it was a white guy that was going ahead and playing it, or it was a whole character of white people in it, because that wasn't the point of the movie. It was a concept. It was entertaining, but it was conscious. And that's what made it a great movie. Here in these times, now they're trying to go ahead and put, sprinkle people from whatever, based upon the color of their skin, like I said, sexual preference, all of these kind of things. They're going ahead and they're trying to sprinkle this. And by them doing so, they're trying to go ahead and get us to reinvest into their reality. Don't fall for it. We need to return back to being conscious. We need to return back to promoting consciousness, okay? And promoting this whole idea of what it means to be conscious. Consciousness has nothing to do with the person's skin. It has nothing to do with, let me rephrase that. It has nothing to do with the superficialities. Yes, it's important, okay? Let's not get tricked into believing that. Yes, it's important. It's very important, and for the most part, let's see. It's like when we're talking about the Kemetic people, okay? Because that's another thing that's coming up. Now all of a sudden, you hear all these people over in Egypt. They're going ahead and they're rallying. The ancient Egyptians were not black. this is some wokeness. Okay? You see where it's going? See how they're trying to go in here and they're trying to trick us? They're trying to go in here and throw some smoke screens on something that it really is true. And that's the reason why I'm saying, forget all this stuff that they're talking about. Forget this crap that they're talking about regarding wokeness and all this other kind of stuff. And we need to go in here and go back to promoting consciousness. All right? Consciousness, it is important that we know that the Kemetic people were black and brown skinned Africans. It's important that we know that, because that lets us know what the culture was. It helps us to go ahead and go further and go further than the superficialities and understand how it relates to us all. Okay? That's what that's about. That's the importance of going ahead and doing that and saying that. All right? Don't let them go in here and trick you into thinking, oh, why is it all about the color of the skin and all that kind of stuff? No, and get into this whole big old debate about them being black or them being brown or them being this or them being that. Don't let them fool you, okay? Because this is an illusion. That's all they're trying to do, okay? So I just wanted to go ahead, like I said, wanted to put that out there. Hopefully that makes a little bit more sense. Again, if you got any comments, questions, or suggestions, feel free to drop me a line. Until next time, heads up, peace.